My fault. What's going on, people? It's Kiss Shorty Gamer Nation or Kiss Shorty Views and Vlogs. And remember to like, share, subscribe to the video. The topic I speak of today, right? And it spawned from a video I did earlier. Let me go to that video right quick. Let me go to the video right quick. Wow. So wow. So on my channel is a community strike guideline, right now. But all over YouTube, you can look at Black Americans saying all kind of racial shit about oh shit. It got reviewed. All right, so some of my content now, I have to go look at it. But all over YouTube, you've been seeing Black Americans say some of the most xenophobic shit about Caribbean blacks. And in my comment section, and I don't see them getting content strikes, but it is what it is, right? I gotta go modify something with my shorts or do something about that. So now Black Americans, they can. So I'm gonna show you my comment section. I'll show you my comment section right quick. Remember to like, share, subscribe to the video. All right, so some of my YouTube chats, I'm gonna have my shorts. I'm gonna have to not post them. All right, so Black Americans, they could bother everybody else. They could talk shit about Caribbean blacks. Look at this comment set right here. These tethers cracking me up. Because the word tether has an actual meaning, you can defend that this is not a racial slur when it is. So Black Americans learn, my bad. FBAs learn very well from their slave master. Right. Look at this. Most people don't support that or immigrants because they feel as if is the tax on them and no one gives a shit. Well, okay, if I'm an immigrant, whether I'm Jamaican, Haitian, or Irish, or Jewish, or whatsoever, and I'm paying taxes into the system, Jamaicans didn't enslave Black Americans, so why should I have to pay that in reparations? This is why this is to say the same for Black Americans. If they go to Jamaica and try to impede the politics of a group in Jamaica, what have Jamaicans tried to impede on the politics of Black Americans? What? As a collective group, when Jamaican blacks initially during, I want to say, the 60s and before that, when we try, and you can go look up articles that talk about this, right? Like the West Indian Syndrome, right? When Caribbean blacks tried to shout out to my man Izzy Bands, he going live right now, right? When we initially tried to separate ourselves from Black American politics in the 19th century, and then in the 1920s up into the 1940s and then the 60s, you Black Americans or FBAs that you call yourself, well, first of all, you gate-kept us from civil rights movement. Go look up Kwame Ture. Go look up somebody called Claudia McKay. They talked about how the treatment of them. Look up the West Indian syndrome. Y'all didn't want Caribbean blacks in your civil rights movements or struggles. That's number one. So when Caribbean blacks tried to separate themselves from Black Americans, you shamed them. See, these Caribbean blacks, they don't believe that there's some coconuts. They don't believe they're black like us. Then when Caribbean blacks said, okay, cool, the Kwame Toure's, the Stokely Carmichaels, the Claudia McKays, the Marcus Garveys, the Malcolm X's, when we said, okay, cool, we gonna help y'all fight in this fight, we gonna integrate, and we gonna give up pieces. Hold on. Give me a second. Give me a moment. I'll be right back. All right, and I'm back. Um, so right. So the argument when Caribbean blacks tried to keep themselves separate, people like Marcus Garvey, the Nation of Islam, was like, yo, y'all are black just like Black Americans. Integrate yourself. But W. Du Bois, a lot of the people in the Black Americans or in the civil rights movement didn't want us in their movement. Right? So what Caribbean blacks ended up doing is we had to give up bits and pieces of our identity to be part of their movement. Right? And this has been documented. and I'm going to post the articles. As a matter of fact, I might even share them. No, but I'm going to post the articles that speak about this. Somebody by the name of Mary Waters talks about this. Right? So I'm going to post the links to them in the description for you guys to go look up, right? And then now, all the way now to our present day, for them niggas to say, oh, we embraced y'all, or, y'all are cosplaying us. Caribbean blacks did not want to cosplay you in the beginning. They want to separate themselves from you. And then when Caribbean blacks like myself and others bring up the fact that in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, blacks like myself used to encounter bullying from Black Americans. You know how many fights I got into of a nigga fucking with me how I talk in patois or my Caribbean culture? Ask any Caribbean black from 80s, 90s, and 2000s East New York, Brooklyn. Let them tell you. Banana boats. Motherfucking Bobby Smurda was on DJ Vlad interview talking about that. Black Americans don't want to acknowledge that you used to fuck with Caribbean blacks. That's why Caribbean blacks said, okay, cool. We're going to separate from you and do our own thing because you don't want us here. And on top of that, we're going to fight back. Y'all don't want to hear that. Y'all want to maintain the lie that you embrace Caribbean blacks into Black American identity and culture, and somehow we cosplayed you when we added to the American pie. So let's look at some of these comments in my comment section, right? Look at this one. Look at this Negro. FBAs only have a problem when others assert themselves within our politics. They start regulating who should get reparations. Who the fuck in the Jamaican population as a group is trying to assert ourselves into your politics and regulate who should get reparations? Who's doing that? Who's doing that? All right. Look at these other comment sections. You people, this is how white people talk towards Black Americans. You people trying to erase who we are at FBA is not an organization. So hold on. FBA is not an organization. Tariq Nasheed doesn't own the copyrights to it. And how is Caribbean blacks trying to erase you? We're trying to erase you? Anyway, let's remove that off the stage. And no matter what history I show them, I've done a whole video about this. Right? Oh, we see this? Okay, this is something different, right? That's another presentation. I could show the history of this Gully Geechee connection. Many enslaved Africans brought to the Gully Coast came directly from Sierra Leone, the Gold Coast, and the Windward Coast, but also from the Caribbean transshipment, ports like Barbados, Jamaica, and St. Kitts. During the 17th century and early 1800s, British colonial traders often seasoned or broke enslaved Africans in the Caribbean before sending them into the American South. That means many Gully ancestors had already absorbed Caribbean culture, speech, and foodways before ever setting foot in the Carolinas. I could bring about that. I could talk about this. I could talk about how this affected American politics. All of this. All right. Jamaican rebels were deported to the Carolinas and Georgia after major uprisings like Tacky's Rebellion in 1760 because the British wanted to remove troublemakers. Those deported Jamaicans brought their maroon mentality and guerrilla warfare tactics into the Americas. I could talk about that. Plantation owners across American South panicked because Haiti proved that enslaved Africans could successfully overthrow European rule. The U.S. passed harsher slave codes, especially modeled on the earlier Jamaican and Barbadian slave codes, which had been written to control rebellious slaves, island slaves. I could talk about that. I could bring about all of this. Everything you can look at, you can search this in your Google search because that's how I got it. Right? This is not me drawing from my own thinking. I searched it. I put the link. All of this. All of this. I broke it down. And Caribbean, the FBA is going to continue to deny your contributions to the Black identity, just like white people don't want to acknowledge Black Americans' contributions to the American space. Right? So, with all that said, I can even talk about this history. Watch this history right here. Watch this history. Watch this. John Brown was a radical white abolitionist who believed slavery could only be ended through armed insurrection. His plan on Harper's Ferry, Virginia, to arm enslaved people and spark a general uprising mirrors the same revolutionary logic that came out of the Caribbean, particularly Haiti. Brown has studied the Haitian Revolution, admired Toussaint Louverture, and believed Haiti proved that Black people could successfully overthrow slavery through force. Historian David Blight and others note that Brown viewed the Haitian Revolution as a divine precedent, that God sanctioned violent resistance to slavery. Haiti was discussed often in abolitionist circles, newspapers, and Black conventions in the North. Frederick Douglass himself lectured on Haiti, and Douglass and Brown personally knew each other. So Brown didn't need to read Tacky's revolt directly. He already absorbed the idea that enslaved people in Americas had legitimate right to revolt. All right, I can bring up all of this. I can bring up all of this. And no matter what I bring, they're not going to acknowledge it, right? This one right here. Prince Hall, the founder of Prince Hall Freemasonry, was an African-American. He was born around 1735 in Barbados and later moved to Boston, Massachusetts as a child. So his nationality at birth would have been British colonial Barbadian under British rule, but he's historically recognized as an African-American due to his life and impact in the United States. So this is a Barbadian recognized as an African-American because of his impact in the United States. Let's go into that. Prince Hall is one of the most significant figures in early African-American history because he helped create a space for Black leadership, community organizing, and self-determination during a time when both slavery and systematic racial exclusion were rampant. Here's a detailed breakdown. Early life, born around 1735 in Barbados. He was of African descent. Moved to America as a child, he relocated to Boston, Massachusetts, which was a major colonial port city with a growing Black population. Status, he was a free Black man, though living in a society where African Americans face severe social, legal, and economic restrictions. Military service. Hall served in the Continental Army during American Revolutionary War, fighting for the American colonies. His service highlighted both the contributions of African Americans to fight for freedom and the hypocrisy of a nation that denied them basic rights. Introduction to Freemasonry. Around the 1770s, Hall and 14 other free Black men sought to join a local Masonic lodge in Boston, but were denied membership due to race. Freemasonry was a secret society that provided networking, mutual aid, and a moral framework, benefits that were largely unavailable to Black people. How he started Prince Hall Masonry. Hall and his group petitioned the Grand Lodge of England for a charter to form their own lodge. In 1775, they received a permit warrant from the Grand Lodge of England, allowing them to meet as a lodge under the name African Lodge No. 1. Significance. This made Prince Hall Masonry the first Black fraternal organization in the United States. Growth and community impact. Hall used the lodge to provide education, literacy opportunities for African Americans, organize mutual aid and charity, helping members financially and socially, foster Black leadership, civic responsibility in a time of systematic oppression, promote Black identity and pride in the face of exclusion. Hall also advocated for the abolition and civil rights, writing petitions to the Massachusetts legislature for equal rights and opposing discriminatory laws. Prince Hall Masonry grew into a nation network of Black Masonic lodges with profound influence on African American communities. It helped establish a space of Black intellectualism, leadership, and social cohesion, decades before widespread civil rights activism. Today, Prince Hall Masonry is international, the largest in the US, Canada, and the Caribbean and Africa. Empowerment. It provided a way for Black men to practice leadership, self-governance, and community support when mainstream society excluded them. This is a Sigma move right here, right? Networking. Members gain access to education, mentorship, and business connections that help elevate the Black community, socially and economically. Identity formation. Prince Hall Masonry became a symbol of dignity, order, and achievement for African Americans, countering narratives of inferiority. Political and social advocacy. By the mid-19th century, Prince Hall lodges, so Civil War era, right, had become established centers of Black leadership. Members were often involved in abolitionist movements, helped recruit Black soldiers for the Union Army, and organized mutual aid for freedmen. The lodges provided safe spaces for stargazing, holding meetings that, I think that's the right? Oh, strategizing, my fault. Not bad. Let me read this properly. The lodges provided safe spaces for strategizing, holding meetings that would discuss civil rights, education, and economic empowerment at a time when African Americans were largely excluded from formal political life. Education and literacy. Prince Hall lodges promoted literacy and education from the very start. They sponsored schools and scholarship programs, which became critical as education was systematically denied to Black people in both the North and the South. This foundation of literacy and self-education helped produce Black intellectuals, activists, and business leaderships, including those who contributed to the rise of Black Wall Street. Mutual aid and financial networks. Hall lodges functioned as early credit and insurance networks for Black communities. Members pooled resources to help each other start businesses, buy property, and survive economic hardship. Those networks influenced the creation of Black business art districts, most famously Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, where fraternal organizations and community associations provided organizational and financial support. While Prince Hall lodges weren't the sole factor, the model of mutual aid and self-help laid the groundwork for African-American economic organization. The lodges were hubs of African-American culture and pride. They helped forge a sense of collective identity, emphasizing dignity, moral responsibility, and leadership. In the absence, my fault, people, my cat fucking with me. In the absence of formal recognition from white society, these lodges validated African-American accomplishments and created a historical memory of achievements. The ritual symbols, ceremonies often incorporated African-inspired moral frameworks, which reinforced cultural continuity even in the diaspora. In the late 19th and early centuries, Prince Hall lodges became training grounds for civil rights leadership. Many lodges became NAACP founders, or lodge members became NAACP founders, Black educators, politicians, and activists, using the fraternal network to organize, fund, and strategize. The lodges also protected Black communities during periods of racial violence. After the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, some survivor lodge members coordinated aid and rebuilding efforts. Bro, y'all get the picture, right? I'm going to do a whole video separate on this brother here and talking about him, right? Y'all get the picture. No matter what I bring to the table of this, no matter what I say, no matter what facts that I bring, it just doesn't matter in the FBA. So here's my solution. Caribbean Blacks in America should just stick to our own, like what we were trying to do before in the 19th century and in the 1960s. But when we tried to do that, Black Americans, calling themselves FBA now, told us, or called us coconuts, or we don't want to be part of their struggle, or we trying to be separate from them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then when we integrated with them, fought in their struggles, now they're denying our contribution to them. And they're saying we're cosplaying them. Think about that. You have to give up bits and pieces of your Caribbean identity to be part of Black American struggle. You help fight, bleed, and die for them. Then years later tell you that you are cosplaying them, and that you that you are trying to what you call uh what they trying to call what's the word they like to use? We're trying to undermine them or erase them. When we had to erase pieces of ourselves to be part of you, now for you to call us cosplayers and tethers. So here's the solution. Cat, come here. Me and my cat, we're going to sit up here and talk shit about you. The frustration with dialogue. I've noticed that no matter how many facts or sources you bring into discussions between foundational Black Americans and Caribbean Blacks, many FBAs refuse to engage with the evidence sincerely. The discourse often becomes emotional and dismissive. Historical hypocrisy. I argue that FBA groups often claim they've always embraced Caribbean Blacks as their brothers in the struggle, but historically that isn't true. I reference academic and historical evidence such as West Indian Syndrome article and oral histories of Caribbean immigrants who faced xenophobic or dismissive treatment from Black Americans, especially during the 60s. I cite real slurs, banana boat, coconut, that were used by Black Americans against Caribbean Blacks. Contributions of Caribbean Blacks. I emphasize that Caribbean Blacks have had major contributions to the Black American struggle. Stokely Carmichael, Trinidadian, major civil rights and Black power figure. He coined the word Black power. Malcolm X, mother from Grenada, father influenced by Garveyism. Marcus Garvey, Jamaican leader who inspired global Pan-African consciousness. Minister Louis Farrakhan, parents from St. Kitts and Jamaica. Let's look up Minister Farrakhan. Because when I was looking him up today, I didn't know. I knew he had Caribbean roots. I didn't know. I thought he was just Trinidadian. I didn't know he was Jamaican. Let me share this. I did not know. Look at this. Mr. Louis Farrakhan's background is not from the Caribbean. He was born in the Bronx, so he's a New York nigga. I did not know that either. To a Jamaican mother and Trinidadian father, his parents' Caribbean heritage is the source of his connection to the region, which he has used to foster diplomatic ties and promote the Nation of Islam's message of Black unity throughout the Caribbean, Africa, and the Middle East. His mother, William Farrakhan, was born from Jamaica, and his father, Hakeem Oliver, was from Trinidad. Wow, I did not know that. I did not know that. I did not know that. This is what it says. I did not know that. Okay. Okay, so anyway, and Minister Farrakhan has put his life on the line for Black Americans to this day, right? True alignment in certain activist spaces. FBA versus Caribbean African tensions are well documented, particularly since the rise of the FBA movement. There's a documented pattern of mutual hostility and stereotyping. Caribbean immigrants faced rejection by Black Americans in the early decades. Largely accurate historical research, Murray Waters, Philip Kisnitz, confirms that Caribbean immigrants often face intergroup prejudice from Black Americans who sometimes use xenophobic stereotypes. The West Indian Syndrome articles and oral histories back this, and I'm going to post the links to those articles in my chat, in my description. Caribbean Blacks contributed heavily to the Black American struggle. Factually correct. Major figures in Pan-Africanism, civil rights, and Black power. had Caribbean roots. Many scholars, C.L.R. James, Winston James, Manning Marable, have written about this contribution. Right? Despite claims of unity, the relationship between foundational Black Americans and Caribbean Blacks has long been marked by misunderstanding, selective memory, and interracial prejudice. Historical evidence shows that many Caribbean immigrants played pivotal roles in advancing Black liberation in America, yet their contributions have often been dismissed or overshadowed by nationalist narratives. As the discourse continues to devolve into hostility, it may be time for Caribbean Blacks to reassert an independent culture and political identity, rather than seeking validation within spaces that continually reject their inclusion, right? And guess what? I agree with FBA. I agree that Caribbean Blacks, we shouldn't speak on their politics. We shouldn't talk about shit that affect with them. We shouldn't fight their battles. We should stick to our own battles and fights. And we're going to break it down today. Caribbean Blacks have fought and died for Black America, from Garvey to Malcolm to Stokely. Yet now we're being called tethers and outsiders. The truth is we were never fully embraced, only tolerated. And maybe it's time we stop trying to belong and start standing on our own, right? I've come to the conclusion, a solution actually. Maybe this ongoing tension between Caribbean Blacks and Black Americans, no matter how much we contribute, no matter what we build, many people still refuse to see Caribbean Blacks as equals in the broader Black American space. So I believe it's time we stop trying to merge identities that were never truly one and instead stand on our own. Caribbean Blacks in America should identify as Jamaican. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Okay. I've come to a solution, actually, right? No matter how much we contribute, no matter what we build, many people still refuse to see Caribbean Blacks as equals in the broader Black American space. So I believe it's time we stop trying to merge identities that were never truly one, and instead stand on our own. Caribbean Blacks in America should identify as Jamaican-American, Haitian-American, Trinidadian-American, Barbadian-American, and so on, just like other ethnic groups do. When an Italian comes to this country, he becomes Italian-American. When an Irishman comes, he becomes Irish-American. When a Jewish person comes, they become Jewish-American. They didn't erase who they were to be accepted. They brought their identity into the American space. I don't know why my cat is doing what he's doing. In the American space, contributed to its growth and maintained their lineage and cultural pride. The same logic applies to us. When a Jamaican and Trinidadian innovate. Let me read this again. When an Irish-American, when an Italian comes to this country, he becomes Italian-American. When an Irishman came, he became Irish-American. When a Jewish person came, they became Jewish-American. They didn't erase who they were to be accepted. They brought their identity in the American space, contribute to its growth, and maintain their lineage and cultural pride, which is what a lot of Jamaicans and Caribbean Blacks tried to do. But what Black Americans tried to do is to try to bully us to be like them. And then when we became like them, now they're saying we cosplaying them. Other groups of Europeans don't have to do that. And their contributions to America get acknowledged along with their heritage and their lineage. But we Jamaicans can't do that. You FBA keep talking about, well, see, they don't want to be Black like us and they want to acknowledge their lineage and their pride. Well, the Jewish American can amongst Europeans. The Irish American can amongst Europeans. The Trinidadian can, the Italian can amongst Europeans. Why can't we acknowledge that? Why do we got to be absorbed and erase our identity as Jamaicans to be part of you? When you didn't want us to be part of you in the beginning. The same logic applies to us. When a Jamaican or Trinidadian innovates, builds, or creates something in America, he brings his cultural ingenuity, his flavor, his discipline, his perspective, and adds that to the American story. He's not Black American, he's a Caribbean in America contributing to America. Therefore, our politics should reflect our lineage-based interests, not borrowed ones. And this is why I agree with FBA. I agree with FBA that your religion should reflect you, it should benefit you, reparations should go to you, and you should fight for your own. I agree with that. I'm telling Caribbean Blacks to stay out of that fight, to fight our own battles in America as Caribbean Americans, separate from Black Americans. We don't want to cosplay them. We don't want to interlope on them. We don't want to undermine them. We don't want to erase them. And we shouldn't erase ourselves trying to be part of them. Therefore, politics should reflect our lineage-based interests, not borrowed ones. Caribbean Americans should organize, vote, and advocate for policies that affect our immigrant communities, our children, and our collective future in this country. That means we can still stand in solidarity with Black Americans when it makes sense, but politically we should be independent. We should have our own coalitions, our own organizations, our own agendas, because the truth is, we spent decades fighting to belong in a space that doesn't fully embrace us. It's time to build our own, right? Build our own peace in America, contribute to America, and get piece of the pie of America because we contributed to the pie. You feel me? A lot of people, Black Americans, don't understand that the American dream or the American pie is a combination of different immigrants coming to America and contributing to the foundation. Even the Black identity itself, that I keep showing, is a mixture of different Caribbean identities along with Southern Black identities coming from slavery, but they don't want to acknowledge that. The movie Sinners tried to tell you that, but fuck it. Psychological, philosophical bias. I'm advocating for ethnic pluralism, with a blackness, similar to how European immigrants kept distinct culture labels, Irish-American, Italian-American. This is a legitimate sociological position rooted in self-definition. And group agency. Historical parallels. The analogy with European immigrants is accurate. They maintain dual identities and leverage ethnic solidarity for economic and political power. I'm applying that model to Caribbean Blacks. Political logic. Building independent Caribbean immigrant political blocs, PACs, communities, organizations, etc., can help address unique immigrant concerns. Visa policies, remittances, Caribbean trade, relations, deportation issues. It's logically sound, and parallel groups like Cuban Americans or Haitian Americans in Florida, right? So, us Caribbean Blacks, like Jamaican, Haitian, Trinidadian, we need to be cat. What is your problem, bro? This is my cat. Causing problems. Right? What we have to do as Caribbean immigrants and children of Caribbean immigrants, we have to now have a civic and moral duty that when we go anywhere across the planet, especially America, to respect that house and contribute to the house, contribute to the foundation, bring our ingenuity and our innovation and our skills to help to build, continue, and maintain America. Don't be disrespectful to America. Contribute to it so we can get back something from it. You understand? Right? Overall, the idea is coherent, historically grounded, and strategically logical. If the aim is empowerment and representation, not hostility, right? It's a push for clarity of lineage and independent agency, not disunity. So to the politics, to like the Jamaicans in politics, right? When it comes to stuff about Black American reparations, we should say, we shouldn't even vote, yay or nay. We should just mind our business and then let a Black American politician deal with that. You feel me? Just like America has different European groups, Italians, Irish, Jewish, Polish, and each one contributed something unique to the American story, Caribbean immigrants should do the same. When Italians build business, when Jewish Americans advance in banking for service, when Irish entered politics, each group added its own flavor to the American pie. Give me a second. My bad. A lot of interruptions in this video today. Right? When Irish entered politics, each group added its own flavor to the American pie. And because of that, each got a piece of the American dream. They contributed, they integrated, but they also kept their cultural distinction. That's exactly how Caribbean Blacks in America should operate. When a Jamaican, a Trinidadian, or Haitian comes to the U.S. and builds something, whether it's in music, gaming, film, technology, or entrepreneurship, he's not just doing that as a Black American. He's doing it as a Jamaican-American, Haitian-American, or Caribbean-American, bringing the heritage and creativity of his island to the American space. We should proudly reflect our lineage in everything we do, so the world knows that our contribution comes from a distinct culture and tradition. This is why I agree with FBA, 100%. And politically, we should mind our own business. We don't need to jump into Black American politics, reparation debates, or domestic cultural wars that don't represent our immigrant lineage. That doesn't mean hostility, it just means focus. Cuban-Americans should build political structures that speak directly to our own interests. Immigration reform, trade with our home islands, fair visas, education, opportunities for Caribbean children, and cultural investment. Just like other ethnic groups carve out their lane in America without stepping on others, we should do the same. Because when you define yourself clearly, you protect your legacy and you make sure your people have a seat at the table under their own name. So, we should do the same, right? So, what does that look like? If I become the biggest YouTuber in ever history in gaming, in politics, or whatever, in gaming, especially in the gaming, right? I am not going to say I represent Black America. I'm going to say I represent Jamaican-Americans. And I'm going to speak specifically to Jamaican-American issues and politics and advertise myself as a Jamaican. I'm not going to advertise myself as a Black American. I'm going to advertise myself as Jamaican. Anytime they ask me about Black issues, I'm going to say, well, I don't think I qualify to speak on Black American issues. I think a Black American or FBA American should speak on that topic. I don't want to cosplay them. I don't want to speak on something that's none of my business. So you got to ask them. That's what I'm going to do, right? Cultural logic. My comparison to European ethnic groups, Italian Americans, Jewish Americans, etc., is historically sound. They maintain strong ethnic identity while integrating into American life. This model works because it balances heritage pride and national participation. Caribbean Americans following that pattern could strengthen representation and cultural preservation. The argument for a separate Caribbean American political base is coherent. Different immigrant groups often build their own advocacy, organizations, and PAC. Right? Cuban Americans in Florida, Korean Americans in California focus on issues that directly affect Caribbean communities. Immigration, trade, education makes strategic sense. Right? Potential benefits. Creates a clear identity and lineage distinction, prevents cultural erasure within broader Black politics. This is why I agree with FBA, right? Strengthens cultural branding in arts, tech, business, and politics. Builds community-specific political capital and leverage, right? My idea, the Caribbean immigrants earn a piece of the American pie through contribution, mirrors classical American immigrant narratives. This framing could resonate strongly with audiences valuing merit and hard work and cultural pride. Scholarly context. Scholars such as Mary Waters and Philip Kanznats and Alejandro Ports have documented that second-generation Caribbean immigrants navigate identity in precisely this way, oscillating between ethnic distinctiveness and racial inclusion. My argument simply takes the ethnic distinctiveness side to its logical conclusion, political autonomy, right? So, what else I wanted to show? All right, so personal commentary, right? Caribbean Blacks who responded to treatment now rejecting Black Americans, right? So the narrative of cosplay erases Caribbean agency and contributions, particularly in leadership roles within Pan-Africanism, civil rights, and Nation of Islam, right? Oh, even if I break this down, right? Element. So this is about how the swag and clothes and everything fused, right? By the 1980s, the New York flavor, sharp, bold, confident, rhythmic, slightly militant, was uniquely forged through African American plus Caribbean fusion. Color boldness, British tailoring, roots, Clark's, gold. Now, Clark's is not something unique to the Black American thing. Clark's is unique to Caribbean Blacks because Clark's production originated in some place called the UK. I forgot what the place it was called. But what would happen is every time Bob Marley went on tour, he would just buy Clark's and bring him back to Jamaica. So Clark's is something unique to Caribbean Blacks, right? Zoot suits, jazz, elegance. The fly NYC style, flashy but masculine, right? Razor precision, dreadlocks, natural pride. Fades, waves, barbershop, culture. Clean the fades with cultural variation. So this is how these two things blended to become New York's unique identity, right? Sound system, toasting rhythms, blues, funk, jazz. Hip-hop, reggae, dancehall fusion. Patois, rhythm, vibes, culture. Soul vernacular, New York slang plus accent hybrid. Proud, militant, stylish. Cool, smooth, confident. NYC swagger, verbal, physical, stylish dominance, right? I could do all of this all day. I could do all of this all day. I could do this all day. I could do this all day. See, in this graph, we're talking about how things came to fuse, right? We could break this down all day. I can even go into something over here. Could go into this all day. Harlem Heights and Bed-Stuy. These immigrants were often better educated, sometimes more middle class, and very proud of their cultural identity. So they weren't trying to cosplay Black Americans at first, right? Saw themselves as British subjects, blah, blah, blah. Especially Jamaicans and Barbadians came from a colonial societies where sharp dressing symbolized respectability and status. They were influenced by British tailoring traditions. This gave rise to the Harlem Dandy. I could break this down all day. Bro. Jamaicans and Trinidadians began influencing the Black Party and sound system culture long before hip hop. They brought the concept of moment DJs, heavy bass, and the idea of selector. What would become the DJ? The Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn dancehall basement parties in the 1960s, 70s were precursors to hip hop Black parties, which something Melly Mel confirmed, right? The early fade and lineup culture in New York barbershop evolved through a combination of Southern African-American barbering and Caribbean meticulousness. Jamaicans and Trinidadians had a long history of razor-sharp grooming. Goatees, clean lines, and precision haircuts were marks of self-respect. In the Caribbean, trimming haircuts was serious business, and that precision fused perfectly with Harlem and Brooklyn's barbershop culture. By the 1970s, the New York clean cut with edge, sharp lineups, fades, wave became the masculine beauty standard. That aesthetic was as much Brooklyn Caribbean as it was Harlem African American. Bro, Chris Clark's golden hats, right? Bro, I could talk about this all day. But regardless, FBA, they're going to deny it. And with all of this said, Caribbean blacks, the evolution and solution. We should evolve from FBA spaces. We should not speak on their politics. You know what? We should just leave hip hop alone. And regardless of what we contributed to New York's identity, FBA are not going to acknowledge it. And they're doing it on purpose. Just like how white America would not acknowledge their Black Americans' contribution to America, they would not acknowledge ours to Black identity. So at this point, the evolution is to evolve, separate, and leave FBA topics alone. Let them fight their own battles, and we fight our own battles as Jamaican Americans or Caribbean Americans, and we fight for our own struggles and shit, and mind our business when it comes to them. Anyway, this is Kiss Shorty Gamer Nation. Like, share, and subscribe.